Greetings, fellow humans, and welcome to another Tea with JD. This is still my lovely thermo mug with some nice, tasty tea. Rooibos this time. And this is actually the storybooks tag, where I was tagged by Kelly, Rainbow Sky Child, wonderful friend from South Africa, who is as Finn-loving as in Finland-loving as it gets, and she's a barrel of laughs. She identifies with Leslie Knope. She's a brilliant singer and songwriter, by the way. She's a cool friend. She did the storybooks tag. She asked if I would do it. I signed up for it without knowing what the hell the storybooks tag is, and this is me doing it. It's basically you say stories about stuff that stories about books that you've read. That's all. You can do as many or as little as you want. I'm gonna do 10 because 10 stories. There's more than 10 books because I think it's important to cover all the bases. So first off, the Light Fantastic, which is the first book in the Discworld, and The Adventures of Pixie Piper. Discworld is by Terry Pratchett. The Adventures of Pixie Piper is by Maricel Jimenez, who is a fellow indie author from Puerto Rico. Both of these books I'm really fond of. And why do I put them in the same context? Because I actually read them when Mom was undergoing her first operation for breast cancer. So obviously I was tense. And it was a day to worry a lot. And I took those two books, and throughout, with Discworld, I was able to laugh out loud. People were wondering what I was laughing about since my mom was under the knife. And then with Pixie Piper, it was just a really sweet read, which I highly recommend. I have the second book that I have to read, but I'm still shaking off the remnants of a reading and writing slump, but I'm hell-bent this week, so yeah. But those two books kept me company in a day that was not an easy day to cope with, because obviously worry sets in. But that shows the power of a book. A good book in the right situation can help keep you centered and in a positive mind frame, and let you escape just enough to be aware, but not let the gravity of a situation drown you. Second off, I'd like to talk about a series that I talk about ad nauseum here, which is The Sandman by Neil Gaiman. This is one of my biggest influences, but the story with this is its influence on me as a writer. As a reader, I was blown away, but as a writer, there's certain books in my life that have broken down walls or broken me, and in a way where when I reassemble myself as who I am as a writer, it's not a totally new definition, but it definitely has a lot more stuff in it. Sandman is one of those works because I think it's one of the most creative, imaginative, and literarily rich works I've ever come across. And it's gorgeous, and it feels like a dream. It properly feels like a dream. I think that's why I like it so much, and it was such an influence. Third off would be my relationship with Harry Potter and New York City. In New York City, I was in a multicultural advertising internship program, and a fellow Maper called Pam Namoto actually gifted me The Chamber of Secrets. So I read The Philosopher's Stone, The Chamber of Secrets, and Azkaban while I was in New York. And it is the book, it is the series that has most inspired random people around me to strike up a conversation. And really, New York definitely has a different flavor thanks to the magic of those books with me. I would love to see these people again who I had random conversation. I had 4 random conversations on the subway with people like, "Are you here yet?" And then no, but and then da 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 da. The whole wizarding geeking out. It was awesome. It was awesome. I think it's the first time I've truly been able to geek out of anything with strangers. And I think that's why we're so fond of the wizarding world and why it's so special to us, because it brings us together regardless if we know each other or not. Not only regardless of which house we belong to, Ravenclaw, but regardless of knowing each other or not. And that's a beautiful thing. And another thing of Harry Potter is that I was so engrossed reading, I had to get off at 42nd Street. Yeah, 42nd Street. I was reading, and suddenly I see like a lot of light, and I'm crossing a bridge. So that means I missed about 9 stops, because I was with my headphones and just reading, going, da da da, this is awesome, yeah, magical stuff. It was so magical that it transported me technically out of Manhattan, without the need of a port key. Next up, The Little Prince. I actually read The Little Prince for the first time. I believe it was either January of last year or January of 2015. I'm not 100% sure, but it's that recent. I'm 37. I got a bit late to the party, but a very kind friend said, "You have to read this book." They didn't accept no for an answer. They got the address, they sent me the book, and as soon as I finished the book, I knew that I had read something very important in my life. Something very deep. It's something that can be brief and simple, yet poignant and deep. And to achieve that is no small feat. And it is a book that is at the same time uplifting and takes the rug out from under you at the same time. It's really weird in that sense. It's beautiful, and you can read it every year easily in a couple of hours. But it shows that there is beauty and complexity and simplicity, and I have to work on being able not to achieve that. That is like a milestone in literary terms. Getting to repeating that or doing something even close is, let's say, it's difficult. Never say impossible. But yeah. Next story, Sick Puppy by Carl Hyacin, or however the hell you pronounce his name. I didn't look it up. Sorry, sue me. I'm very fond of this book. Came by it by chance. The captain saw it in a bookstore. She was like, "I think you would like this book." I saw the description. I was like, "This is completely bonkers." And I read a bit of it, and a bit of it, and a bit of it. But I got through 3/4 of the book in a layover. I was coming back from Cleveland. Yeah, Cleveland. I went to Cleveland to watch Pearl Jam, and I had to do a stop in Newark, and there was like a 5-hour delay. It's 5 or 6 hour delay. I'm not exactly sure, but it was a ridiculous delay. Everyone was through the roof. Everyone was pissed off. Everyone was angry, and I was laughing my ass off at this book. It is so out there. It is crass. It is intense, and it is insane. I highly recommend it because it took a really shitty situation and made it all sorts of fun. The next book, and that can be filed under That Broke Me, and I had to reassemble myself, is Frank Herbert's Dune. I'm a big fan of fantasy, but I think that's the first work that I ever read that I felt honestly feels real as it gets, or it's one of the most real things that I've read. That I went like, this sounds like it really exists somewhere. It's not just a good story. It's not just compelling. It feels real in an eerie kind of way. It's one of those influences that is high on the list, and the message of terraforming is there, and melange, I think, is a fascinating concept, and I did a twist on that with Ignalim in the Human Cycle series. It's my tribute to Frank. I've done tributes to different authors because they mean so much to me, including Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, J.K. Rowling, Neil, obviously Frank Herbert, and various others, and various bands and artists. It's just something that stuck with me. Next up is Jademan Comics. As a kid, I was never into comics, and then my next door neighbors were like, come over, and then they showed me Jademan Comics, a Bloodsword comic, and it is, even to this day, one of the best things I've ever written, and I always give it the highest of praise. I always also add that the Chinese hero translations aren't as good as the original Jademan translations, and it's something that I'm going to work on completing. Again, a lot of influence. If you've read my Human Cycle books and you think that the scenes are very graphic, a lot of the influence comes from what I was reading when I was like 9. Like brutal scenes that I was watching, but stuff that has stuck with me, and storylines that show that sometimes you have to go that dark. Without having, and being a wuxia manhua comic, that means it's kung fu, and that means that the fantasy elements are in kung fu, not magic or demons, or although Dracula does appear, not in a hokey way. It's a very interesting way. But really, those comics are, bar none, some of the best I've ever written, and just the artistry of, and to capture, I think the best comics I've ever seen capture movement are those. Ideas and creativity would be Sandman and other stuff, but movement, where a punch goes, where a kick goes, or just beautiful visuals. Jademan Comics, specifically Bloodsword Dynasty, Drunken Fist, The Force of Buddha's Palm, and Oriental Heroes. Those 5 titles are just amazing. Eighth, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I did a long video talking about food in books and how writing food has to be. This came about because when I read Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe as a kid, I was fascinated by Turkish delight and always wondered what it tasted like. And it took me until I was 26. That's 18 years of waiting, and it was worth the wait. It was delicious. I love logum. Turkish delight is a true delight. But just goes to show that something that you read as a kid sticks with you until you need to discover what something tastes like. I still want to taste a dandelion wine, thanks to Ray Bradbury. I think it would be an interesting experience. Then Only Human, which is actually my first novel, and this isn't a cheat. It's just, there's so many stories with my stories that I want to share one with you. Only Human took 7 years to write, sure. I wrote it by hand, then I had transcribed it all, yeah. But the first 3 chapters, I actually lost it in a flight. I always write longhand, and I left the notebook there, so I had to rewrite it again. There's a little fear in the back of my mind saying, someone's going to steal that. But I already published it. No one has said anything. And it was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me, because when I rewrote it with a lot more energy. And it just found its ground. So even though it was awful that I lost the first 3 chapters, it ended up in a high note. And lastly, Shadow of a Human and Roulette of Rhymes, those 2 books of mine. Shadow of a Human is a sequel to Only Human. Roulette of Rhymes is the latest poetry collection that I released. These 2 books are really important to me because 2015 I was not having a good time, let's put it that way. And there are 2 very important things that you have to take into account at the end of Shadow of a Human and the final poem of Roulette of Rhymes. The final poem is called The Madness of Jonathan J. George, and the final chapters of Shadow of a Human are intense, emotionally so. And I had gone through a really, really rough patch, emotionally, physically, psychologically. And between the end of that novel and that poem, I was able to pull myself together and heal. And just willing myself to heal. And I want to close off with that because it's important to recognize the power of what we create as well as what we read. I started this off with books that I read in a very hard point in my life, hard day in my life, and I'm closing this with two books that have heavy traces of me mending deep emotional damage. There is healing power in books, whether we read them or write them. And yeah, those are my 10 stories. Let me know what you think of this. As for people whom I tag, I didn't get a list for people. This sucks. Off the top of my head, I'll tag some classics. Amber Eats Books. You know I love your channel. You know I love you and all you do. So yeah. Britt, Girl on Kindle Fire, definitely. Alina Popescu, author from Romania, if I'm not mistaken. Also a great channel. Ola Quinn, who's from Italy. Peter Clark, the writer. I haven't tagged you in forever, so by all means, check this tag out, and if you like it, go for it. So for now, before I leave, remember you can still do the Hurricane Maria book tag. I will put the link below, and if you do, I'll give you all of my ebooks for free. That's 10 ebooks for the price of one tag. And also the Humans for Puerto Rico giveaway is still going on. Internationally, if you donate more than $100, you'll enter a raffle to win all 10 of my books signed, sealed, and delivered. And locally, you can donate any amount, and you'll be in the raffle to win one of, I think we're up to 13 or 14 books. I lost count. So if you want free books, all you have to do is support a good cause, and you have to share. You have to go to my Facebook page or Twitter or something and send me in private evidence that you made that donation. I don't need your personal information. I just need evidence of that. Just recently got the first participant, so if you want a chance to win, by all means, check it out. Till next time, peace, love, and maki rolls.